From the very beginning of the biblical account, Genesis presents a world covered entirely by water, a raw, unshaped creation awaiting divine order. Before continents existed and before seas took their shape, Scripture tells us that the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Today, we will explore one of the most fascinating cosmological themes in the Bible, the formation of seas and continents. Throughout the entire biblical narrative, God's power to separate, define, and establish boundaries reveals his ultimate sovereignty and purposeful design. Genesis 1-2 describes the earth in that initial state as being formless and void, completely submerged in water. This powerful description echoes ancient cosmology, but stands apart by presenting God, not chaos, as the ultimate ruler over creation. In this context, water inherently represents raw, untapped potential. Conversely, the divine presence represents the coming of order and structure. Before any land could appear, God first establishes light, time, and the firmament, the cosmic scaffolding necessary for the next stage. Then comes the pivotal moment in Genesis 1-9-10, where seas and continents come into their destined existence. The divine command is explicit. Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. With that single spoken command, two monumental things happen simultaneously across the whole planet. First, the waters organize themselves, and the first massive oceans are instantly formed. Second, the emergent land rises up, bringing forth continents, mountains, plains, and varied terrain. The script clearly emphasizes that this monumental event was absolutely not an accident of nature. This was certainly not the result of random, unguided geological activity. Instead, it was intentional design, powerfully directed by God's sovereign will. Furthermore, God called the dry land itself by the name Earth, and he designated the gathering of waters as the seas, asserting his dominion. This very act of naming indicates absolute authority over every aspect of the new environment. The resulting boundaries between land and water were not merely natural. They were divinely established limits. Throughout the rest of the Bible, the symbol of the sea consistently represents chaos and disorder. The perilous journey of Jonah vividly illustrates the inherent danger associated with the untamed sea. Ancient texts like Job also explore the great, deep, and largely unknown territories held within the ocean's depths. Yet, paradoxically, this symbol also serves to showcase God's superior mastery over his entire creation. Psalm 104 further elaborates on this foundational Genesis account of the earth's structure. The psalm speaks directly of God setting a boundary that the waters may not pass, preventing them from returning to cover the earth. Here, God is actively seen as the one who draws the precise hydrological limits of our entire world. This divine demarcation includes the formation of coasts and the definition of the vast global oceans. It even encompasses the continental divisions that shape our modern geography. Even the slow, immense tectonic movements that shape our world reflect this foundational sovereignty. The emergence of dry land was critically important because it introduced habitability to the planet. On that remarkable day 3, after forming the continents, God immediately filled the land with diverse life. This included the first appearance of all vegetation, every seed-bearing plant. He brought forth the mighty trees and all manner of biological diversity to cover the new terrain. This reveals a fundamental theological principle about the nature of creation. God never creates empty space without intending to fill it with a specific purpose. Dry land, therefore, is not merely a geological fact. It is the prepared stage for all life, human history, and nations. The entire creation narrative powerfully pushes back against the assumption of original disorder being the default state. Another key theme across Scripture is how God meticulously defines boundaries for everything he creates. Proverbs 8:29 reinforces this idea, stating explicitly that he assigned the sea its very limit. These defined limits are not just physical. They extend into the spiritual and moral realms as well. Crucially, God's initial creative act is also the ongoing act of sustaining everything he made. Job 38 beautifully describes the seas as being swaddled like a vulnerable newborn child, completely cared for by God. The final picture of the new creation in Revelation directly parallels this first act of ordering the earth. In the final book, the shocking declaration is made, and the sea was no more, signaling a radical change. Symbolically, this ultimate removal signifies that the age of chaos and fear is finally and completely over. Modern science certainly explains the 50 Hodav of plate tectonics and continental drift with incredible accuracy. However, The biblical narrative explains the essential fighting why there is land, why there is sea, and why the earth is ordered for life. The core message throughout is not about geological mechanics, but about profound theological purpose. Ultimately, the formation of seas and continents in Genesis 1 is much more than just a cosmological event. It is a profound revelation of God's very nature and character. He is the active agent who brings true, lasting order out of initial chaos and formlessness. He establishes the very boundaries that protect life and allow for flourishing across the globe. He deliberately creates habitable spaces, designed specifically for the needs of humanity to thrive. And finally, the entire biblical record confirms that he sustains every single part of his creation through time. From the first verses of Genesis, right through to the final words of Revelation, the Bible consistently portrays God as the master architect. He shapes our physical world with absolute intention, unwavering authority, and an unfailing eternal purpose.